Salutations, Araxians, and welcome to PlanetSide 2 Sneak Peeks. I'm Margaret Crone, and today I get the pleasure of interviewing John Roy, who is an Associate Art Director here at Sony Online Entertainment. So come along with me. Thank you for joining me, John.
Thanks for having me on the show.
They have a lot of questions for you today.
Awesome.
I kind of had to move some of them out of the way, but hopefully you can answer a lot of these. And you also have some art assets for us that are pretty cool that they'll be playing over our questions that we're answering here. So I'm just going to get right into this, but I did want to first ask you maybe to kind of go over what you do for some of the people who don't know who are just watching this right now.
Yeah, so I am a terrain artist. I do all sorts of the environment objects and creation, mainly terrain. Do some of the props like trees and rocks and things like that as well. But that's mainly what I do on the team. So I get to work with, you know, forming the terrain and working on the continent maps and all the texturing and coloring that go on them. And some sky file work too, you know, how the day-night stuff works. Yeah,
so if you are playing in the world of Araxis, you're going to be seeing a lot of the terrain, the color palettes that you see there, the textures, things like that, and that's kind of the stuff that you get to work on.
Right.
And then you also get to work on some of the environmental props that people get to see.
Yeah, trees and some shrubs here and there. I'm trying to think of what else. Those, you know, well, like the grass and little flowers that you'll see all over. Those are things that you know, we work in with the texture maps to get the color, so that's all the things we do as well.
I always see people talking about the flowers. It's funny. All right, well, I'm going to start asking these questions really quick. The first question we have here is from NeoDerp, and he is always hanging out in all of our streams and whatnot. We actually have a lot of really active community members that ask questions this time around.
Cool.
His question is, Roy, computer question, in the shaping the land, do you account for erosion from battle or animals? Are there animals on Araxis?
I guess the only animals are us shooting each other, right?
No. Technically, we are animals. We're in the animal kingdom, right?
Yeah, aggressive ones. So no, we don't have any animals. You know, those who play the game probably haven't seen any. In terms of the battle, what's tricky, as you know, we're a persistent world, so you're not going to be able to say, well, this battle happened, so this terrain has changed because, you know, things will evolve and another battle or something will happen nearby. So we can't really account for that, so we don't.
Yeah, we do have some things where you see tracks from vehicles for a short period of time while you're driving over, but that's not really something that you handle on your side.
No, that's kind of in code, yeah. It's, you know, some little graphics put in, but then the rest of them. And like you said, it doesn't stay there, but while you're in that area, it gives you that, you know, immersed feeling that you're driving. Yeah.
So our next question here is from Mei Xinyu at Mei Xinyu on Twitter, and I believe she's actually an artist for another game company.
Cool.
And she was wondering, curious of how you work around alien worlds. What inspires you to make and form the surroundings and environments?
Oh, that's one of my favorite parts of the job. So, you know, as artists, we're always observing the world. We're looking at all sorts of things, you know, like when I fly an airplane, I'm going over the desert, I'm looking out the window and looking at all the different beiges and creams and colors and just soaking it in. We look at movies a lot because that is very similar to how we're portraying things with a mood, a palette, and so some alien worlds that are, I think, there. You know, I think the other thing is just real life. We're looking at, let's say for Esamir, we looked at a lot of Greenland, a lot of Arctic photos, and just soaking all that in and taking what from those you know, made sense to us to make the worlds.
Yeah, I mean, on the designer side of that thing, or that aspect of game design, we do take a lot of things from real life, because in order for you to relate to things, you kind of have to take some little pieces and elements of real life in order for people to understand the alien concept, and then build upon that and kind of shape it and change it to make you feel a little bit weird about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like changing 10% of it, but yeah, exactly. You want it to be believable, plausible, so it'll immerse you, but yet, like you said, that little change, that little twist to make it alien, yeah. Exactly.
Awesome. So our next thing here is from Azure Twilight. They sent in a ton of questions.
Oh, yeah.
One of their leaders over there sent in a bunch of them after I was like, hey, I need some more questions for John. And I'm just going to ask one of them because we have a lot of questions for you.
Okay.
Our question here is, will we see volumetric smoke before the year ends? Are there plans to smooth hard terrain lines on Indar dirt or grass?
Well, for the first part about volumetric smoke, there's always that possibility, and there's no immediate plans, let's say, for right now. But that's actually a lot more procedural and code related, so not really in my department. But anyways, moving on to the other part, I think you mean like the texture seams, or does he mean or he or she means, I think, the rough erosion cracks. Well,
I think yeah, he's talking more about like whenever you're looking at dirt and then there's little
there's like a straight line where there's the grass.
Like there's some kind of
so there's a couple
lines.
Different ways, and you probably see in some of the imagery we have where we use masks, and those masks are how we paint the whole world on a really macro level. Then we go in, as you've seen us hand paint little areas, little outposts. Sometimes maybe we missed a little spot. It comes back as a bug, so we fix them anyways. So we'll keep an eye out for them.
And is that something that maybe they should report? Because we do have a bug system in where they can be like, hey, if I was standing at this location, you can kind of like assess where you are on the map and leave us a comment there in the bug section. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we'll get to it. I mean, we can't always export and put our every planet out, every game update, but it will be coming. We did that with Indar lately, fix a ton of bugs.
Yeah, and that does take a lot of processing on our end, and then also you guys have to take in a huge patch in order for us to always put out new updates to each of the maps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it takes time.
All right, our next question here is from Steve at BRTD Stevio. And I believe that's Better Red Than Dead, and they are an outfit. I can't remember what server they're on, but they're pretty active. They have lots of YouTube videos. And he wants to know, I'm assuming he's a he, because his name is Steve, how many polygons are typical art assets in PlanetSide 2? What maps are used, and what tools used to make them?
Okay, so 3 parts to that. Our trees, 5, 7, 8,000 polygons, just depending on the kind of tree it is, how big it is, of course, as you would know. For instance, in Indar, there's those really big rocks. Those are a lot more, but they're a lot more screen space. So that is something we take into account. The little rocks on the ground, obviously, they're going to just be a couple hundred.
Yeah.
So it's that type of thing. Trying to think of buildings. I actually don't do as much of the buildings. I'm kind of more on the natural environment side, props and terrain. So I'm thinking they're probably a little more, maybe 10, 15, depending on the, the size of the building.
Is that a choice that you made? Like you would rather work on the environmental aspect and like trees and rocks rather than actually working on buildings and stuff like that?
Well, it was kind of, it was where they needed me. And I had done a lot of that before. I can do both, but it was just kind of the spot that, they needed me the most. So that's where it went. I couldn't remember the other parts of it.
The next part he was asking about was, what maps are used and what tools are used to make them.
Okay. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with game development or not, but everybody uses Photoshop. It's the standard workhorse. We make our source maps in there, and then we output to the NVIDIA format, DDS, that kind of thing. The map sizes are pretty big, sometimes as big as 10, 24, sometimes beyond for some of the terrain stuff. And then that kind of answers, I guess, the tool question as well. So yeah.
Our maps are crazy. We do so much with them, and each of them is handcrafted, so someone's going in there moving all that terrain around, and then also, which is rough at first because they want to just get the concept of like, hey, we really want these hills to be over here, and they kind of need to be at these different heights in order to have different levels of combat in order for defending or attacking. And then on top of that, you guys go in and you're like, oh my gosh, we got to make this look better, right?
What Maggie's kind of saying is like you're saying the world builders kind of rough in the bases.
Yeah.
And, they're like, oh, we want a choke point here, the battle's going to go this way. And then we come in and go, wow, we can make the mountain look a little better. That's that kind of thing. So, that's exactly what we do. And, the real magic, I think, behind some of the stuff we do are, the coders are just wizards.
Oh, we have so many, and they're awesome.
And, we can make all the textures that we want, but they don't look cool without all the mathematical lighting and the shaders. There's sometimes 15 layers of imagery that go into a shader to make it look, awesome in our amazing Forge Light engine. So,
yeah, I think that, you know, even players that see that when they turn off the different, you know, shades in any of our games, they're going to see like a completely different game than when you have shaders on and you're just like, wow, this looks amazing.
Yeah.
And lighting and, you know, different types of effects like that.
Definitely, yeah.
So if you can, turn those things up.
Yeah, keep it up on high.
All right, our next question here is from Robert Harris, and he wants to know, in one of the Esimir concept arts, we saw geysers, but they are nowhere to be found in the game. Will we see them?
Well, you know, the planet's built out and kind of purposed the way it is. You know, I think for performance reasons and things like that, we, you know, passed on them. You know, that's more of a design question, but that's, you know, what I would imagine is the reason why. You know, but that's more of, you know, a design decision.
Yeah, and you know, as designers, we've already talked about some of this stuff on Friday Night Ops, if you've watched that, or Command Center, or Higby streams. He does a lot of those things, and we have talked a lot about various different, you know, art environmental things that are more design related in the environment that we can change in the future. I know everyone's excited and they want to see volcanoes and, you know, lava and stuff like that for future continents, and hopefully we can do those things in the future. But yeah, when it does come down to performance and stuff like that, we always want to make sure we're doing that ahead of time over other,
I mean, it's a game. It's you know, we want the art to look awesome, but you know, it's got to play like a game. It's got to be fun. So that's you know, we always have to account for all aspects. Yeah.
Yeah. So our next question here is from Solaris, and Solaris wants to know, favorite continent theme, more interactable props incoming? Do you draw from real life locations?
Okay. Yeah, we touched on it a little bit. In terms of my favorite planet, I would definitely have to say, believe it or not, it'd be Esimir. I just love that snow, the palette, the cool coldness. I had a lot of fun making that. You know, it wasn't all me, of course. There was a lot of people that actually helped with some of the terrain textures as well. But just designing that out was a lot of fun.
I like the spires in Esimir.
Yeah,
they
kind of
really
crystally
cool.
with the colors. Yeah, that kind of iciness and stuff. Yeah.
And they're purple.
Yeah, that's right. You like your purple.
Come on. It's like made for the Vanu.
Yeah, I know. Well, apparently they like it there.
Yeah, we do.
But,
we like our taste
I like
there.
the real smooth, icy, that shader and that shininess when it hits the sun. It's just so cool. So
we actually did have a question. I didn't put it in here. It was towards the end there. They were asking if you actually work on that reflection stuff that's in Esimir, like the snow and whatnot.
Yeah, so I went in and did some just first pass colors and textures and shaders, and then some of the artists we had, I worked with them and they kind of continued on while I was working on the hide field, but I kind of like blocked it in. But I definitely, you know, worked on that. You know, we have different masks and kind of grayscale maps and say how shiny something is, and you know, so I did that kind of thing.
Max shiny.
Yeah, you know, it turns the whole screen white, so you have to be careful.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
No.
I think the other portion of this question was more interactable props that are incoming.
Oh, that's right. Well, you know, obviously we have the facility stuff, things like that. In terms of the more natural environment, you never know. You know, there's always that possibility, but no immediate plans.
Yeah. Like I know that on the design side, we've talked about some things like bridges that you can actually break, and you know, like block off an area that they can't go in here anymore, and someone has to repair it to make it come back up. Things like that. You know, and that's not like final or that we're going to put it in, but we're playing around with a lot of those ideas because they do kind of make the world change, and they give strategy to the map that you didn't have previously. Yeah,
and I think you're absolutely right on that. The more of the structural pieces, there's definitely, you know, the opportunity to do that. You know, I'd hate to say it, but I mean, you know, the trees and things, you know, you don't want to move them or shove them around, so it's just a little different, Yep.
And I think the last part of this you kind of already answered, which was, do you pull things from real life?
Right. Yeah, like we were saying, you know, Esimir, Greenland, Antarctica. We kind of started looking at, for example, another planet or continent. I keep saying that.
Yeah, he keeps
saying
continent.
My old swig.
I was going to go back to that and say there are continents. There's only one planet.
Everybody teases me on the planet. On the PlanetSide team because I'm stuck into this map meaning a planet. But anyways, it's one of our continents.
Well, in the original PlanetSide, they were planets.
Yeah. So it's, you know, it's a holdover there. So for Amerish, what I'm getting at is we looked at some Scottish Highlands, and then it kind of evolved from there. Things like that, of course, deserts for Indar. So definitely looking at that. You know, with the other planets coming up. Well, I don't want to give away too much, but you know, lots of different reference. Again, that real world, plausible. You can feel like you're there, but it's a little twisted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The new continents are even cooler. I mean, we just keep learning from the things that we've done in the
Absolutely.
past and then making things even better and better.
Definitely.
And look way cooler and cooler because our tech just keeps getting better.
Yeah, we get better at, you know, what the tech can do and pushing the tech more. Our world builders, designers, they're awesome. They keep making or find ways to make the bases better choke points. You can see how that evolved on Endar, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, let's go to this next question from EXE Outfit, and they want to know, was there any research put into using procedural generation for the terrain?
Ah, interesting question. So I worked on a game before where we did almost nothing but procedural terrain on Star Wars Galaxies. It had a lot of drawbacks. So when it came time for, you know, approaching how we're going to do the terrain here, it was considered a little bit upfront, but the decision was, you know, deliberately made to handcraft everything to give a really nice, you know, sense of place that an environment needs to have, and just a little more detail and artistic touch. I think that's what you lose when you have too much procedural. It's very not static, stale in feel, and we just didn't want to do that. It's a lot more work, obviously, but you know, I think the results speak for themselves. It looks a lot better.
Yeah, I think that also in other games where PvP isn't as prevalent, you don't really have to utilize the terrain as actually part of the battlefield.
Yeah.
A lot of the times it's just like, oh, here's some grassland. It doesn't really matter what it looks like because you're not using it to actually give yourself cover or to, you know, move a tank column up without being noticed, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
whereas in PlanetSide 2, we definitely need to make sure that we're making any hill that we make, it has to be there because it has to be a strategic thing. It has to be giving someone cover or allowing someone to get a height advantage or something like that.
Exactly, yeah, because like a lot of procedural terrain, it's just a pattern of noise, or what you know, some of you guys might know as fractals. You know, and it's just this randomness, and then from there you can build you know, terrain and things from there. So you don't really know what you're going to get. Now we use some fractals, but we again go and do that handcrafting and make sure it works as a battlefield.
Well, I think at the first stages, it's easy to be like, all right, I want this size of a map and kind of auto-generate that aspect of it.
Yeah.
But then you guys can go in and move and form mountains and terrain.
We block it in macro level and move down from there. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to this next one, which is from the Reachcast show. And if you don't check them out, you should. They are a podcast, and they do their podcast every Tuesday. Cool. You can go to reachcastshow.com. And their question is, what was his favorite continent thus far to design? And you kind of already went over that.
Yeah, I just, there's something about how cool I think Esmer turned out. You know, it has those open spaces. It's more of the vehicle planet, but just that snow and that shininess and you know, an interesting thing, I don't know if we had mentioned it in other things, but we actually, when making the sky file, found the site about like different weathers, where you are, anywhere in the world, you could see the azimuth and the sun cycle. And so we went to Antarctica and we got the exact pitch angle and all that. So that's what you see on Esamir is the exact Antarctic, you know, sun and cycle. That's why there's no moon, right? Because it's that all day. So
that's neat.
Yeah, I thought a little tidbit to show, you know, to throw out there.
And I do always see like the auroras off in the distance and stuff that like just come in during certain times.
Yeah, really I wish I could take credit for that, but no, Devin, this artist I work with, is he's awesome, and so props to him on the Northern Lights.
We'll have to have him on sometime, but yeah, he's just a really cool guy in general.
Oh yeah, I've worked with him for a long time on different projects, so yep.
Yeah. Our next question here is from Mr. Games for Free, and he wants to know, would it be possible to have waves and oceans on future maps? I'm sure Nanite Systems is capable of aquaforming.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they are, right? So again, never count out, never say never. It's, you know, I think it's also a priority thing as well as, you know, does this really, how much bang for buck does it get or give us right now? But I would love to do it, you know. It's not the most impossible effect at all. It's, you know, but it's, you know, takes time. Is it the right thing to do at what time?
Yeah, something to think about in game design, or game development, I should say, in general, is that we want to make things so that they can be dynamic, so we can use them across multiple continents or maps, or depending on the game. Obviously, ours is an FPS game, so we're going to utilize that in a different way. For instance, a lot of the base pieces in the base, each of those bases are just pieces that have been pasted all over the place. You just don't notice it because we put them all together.
Hopefully.
So we're utilizing those pieces over and over again. So that one piece that we're using multiple times is actually very beneficial for us because it is dynamic, because we can use it in multiple places.
Right, right. Yeah, there's a little bit of modularity, obviously, to leverage what we're doing. But yeah, I think it all comes back to the whole thing, the MMO, the persistence of the world. You can't just say, well, I'm going to put the game in again and reset, reload the art fresh. It's other people are on the planet right now, or were, so that's that's the trick, I think, with MMOs. I think they're the most challenging kind of game to make on a lot of levels. Yeah, but that's the fun.
Yeah, that is the fun part.
It's the challenge.
All right, our next question here is from Reese Holland, and he's very active in our community. He's pretty much been to every event that I can even think of, including our first event, which was E3 back in the day.
Wow.
Remember when we were in beta? We were actually in alpha then.
I think so.
That's crazy, yeah.
It's gone so fast.
I can't even believe that we've been launched for 4 months.
Yeah.
That's nuts for me.
Yeah.
And his question here is there any chance that the landscape of Cirrus will change with every game update due to constant eruptions?
Wow, every game update. Well, we could take a poll, see how many people don't mind 3 gigs coming down every game update. Probably not a good idea. Again, changing the world that much. Obviously, no plans for that. There's definitely, you could do a lot of things. It's just, is it the right thing to do? Will it work in a persistent world or not?
Yeah.
But,
of course, we can always do those things, like he was saying, but not only is it going to be a patch that you guys have to patch in every time that we make any edits to the terrain, but it's also going to change the battlefield drastically.
Exactly, yeah.
So in order for us to do something like that, it has to be warranted, like we've done with Indar and Esamir and Emmerich, in order to make the battle actually flow better.
Exactly. It's like, oh no, there's an eruption, there's a big hole, like the chasm at the top of Indar. I don't know if everybody would want those all over, Talk about choke points.
Yeah, that thing is insane. It's an insane place to fight. As a defender and an attacker.
Yeah, because you're kind of out there, but yet there is, ways around things. So
our next and last question for the evening is from Alex, and Alex wants to know, what are some of the hurdles to jump to get some degree of world destruction? So what are the hurdles that we have in order to get destructible terrain? Destructible
terrain. Well, again, like I said, part of the answer would be the handcrafting we do. The persistence issue. Again, given the technology, there's possibility to do all sorts of crazy stuff. But there are certain design decisions and kind of commitments we've made to the content, to the game, that may or may not prohibit those kind of things in the future. So, I'd say given right now, it hasn't been talked about a lot.
Yeah, I think the major thing for us is that we do have a persistent world.
Yeah.
The battle is always going, and if we were to, let's say, you destroyed a base, we'd have to come over, figure out and brainstorm what would be the best way to make that base come back to life. Would someone have to go in there with an engineer thing and repair everything? It would get a little nuts. But so I mean, those are things that could happen, but they would always have to depend on, design and where we want to go with the game and what our direction is.
I mean, imagine if you had a big, crack, or there was an earthquake or something, and it gave the NC or, VSTR some advantage because they could get around, but yet the TR, they could only fly over. It would change too much. You'd have to almost design for that. So, that's a tricky thing.
Yeah, and I think that, like I was saying before, if we take those in small steps, like saying a bridge can be destructible, and then that way no one can get across from there, and it kind of takes them, now they have to go through a different direction in order to get to your base. That stuff is kind of cool, but it just depends on the situation and how we would implement that.
Yeah, or maybe another example, I guess, would be like a crater from a big, some tank salvo or something, I could see something like that maybe being possible. Hasn't been talked about, who knows, but something like that on a small level. But again, you can't leave it there forever either. So anyways,
Yeah, we have some hurdles to go through in order to to change things drastically like that.
Yeah.
So for now, I think we're not going that direction at the moment, but you know, you never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
Don't want to say never yet.
So I just wanted to thank you for answering these guys
Sure.
and gals' questions. I know that you got something hidden under your shirt there.
I do.
About your pride. So tell them who you align with.
Well, I don't know. So are you asking me what color I bleed? Like what faction?
We already know.
Oh,
Everyone bleeds red other than, you know, Vanu.
Oh, really? Well, that's true, I guess. But, well, I don't know. Let's see here. Whoop. I guess the mic got getting away.
Strip for us.
Well, look at that. Yeah, I am a TR
like Superman.
And I guess a little bit of props too for.
He does roll with an outfit.
Yeah. Oh well, I have my little thing, I guess. So yeah, I run with the TRG,
which is the Terran Republic Guard.
Right on Connery, and if you see me around or kill me, I guess I'm caffeine. So.
That's easy.
Yeah, that comes from me walking around with a coffee cup all the time, so I got that nickname. But yeah, so that's where I am, where you can see me or all that.
So your goal is now, in the comments below, to send me a link of you with a montage of killing him.
Yeah.
And if you're Vanu, you get bonus points.
And I'm going to come back and get you, Tess-X. She's a shout out to our friends and foe, the 666 out there as well. But yeah, just want to say, TRG, good, you know, keep on playing and keep on. We're going to get into one of these days. Sardis and all you guys out there, the night crew. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for joining me and taking the time out of your day. I know
Absolutely,
that the design team over there, well, the development team over there, you guys are super busy all the time. Yeah. And I want to thank the community for sending us your questions. And don't forget to send us your next questions for the next week whenever we put those out. Be sure to check us out at Friday Night Ops. And this airs every Friday, twitch.tv/PlanetSide2 from 5 to 7 p.m. PST. So see you guys around. Toodles.
Sony.